Over to your remarks, Hope. Please.
Okay, thank you very much once again, and I would love to appreciate the organizers of this amazing event to incorporate mental health, not as a side thought, but as a deliberate move. So I would love to invite you to walk with me down memory lane. So I come from a very small town in Zambia called Mpatamatu. In this town, there are much more statistics of suicide cases than there are statistics of people making it in life. You get to find that every year, there are so many numbers of people committing suicide. Every month, you would hear about 3 or 5 young people committing suicide. Now, my story is that I come from this particular town, and I do remember that sometime back in 2012, there was a man who stole explosives from the mine and strapped them up on his body and exploded them and committed suicide. A year later, a person from my neighborhood also multiple times, about 10 times or so, tried to commit suicide, attempted many suicide, had so many suicide attempts. And the funny thing is there was only one particular man in this neighborhood of us who would either talk him out of that suicide attempt or talk him through after the attempt has been done and just give him that psychosocial support. A year later, this same man who used to be the pillar to this particular neighbor who would attempt to commit suicide so many times, commit suicide as well. And that particular man happened to be my father. So after my father committed suicide, I would love to shed this light before I even get into the point that I'm trying to drive across. Suicide does not end your problems, but it transfers them to the next generation. It transfers them to the person next to you. So some years later, I am here being an advocate of mental health. And I do strongly believe that mental health and everything that has to do with the mind struggles is the silent battlefield. Because we cannot see what the mind is going through. Nobody can actually scream them out or be able to scan them to see this is what is happening. It's different from the heart. The heart can go through, somebody can get a machine and just get to see what's going on with the heart, but with the mind it's a silent battle. So according to World Health Organization, mental health can be defined as a state of well-being in which an individual is able to realize their own potentials, be able to contribute to their societies, and be able to cope with the normal stresses of life. But in an event where a person is unable to do all these things, they tend to have a mental health problem. And in this event, I would love to emphasize that mental health is not only the mere absence of an illness, but rather mental health can be defined as the presence of resilience. Mental health can be redefined as the capacity to belong. And when there is capacity to belong, this entails and translates to the bedrock of education, the aspect of security. We cannot talk about security if we are hurting in our minds. We cannot talk about development if trauma has become a daily thing in our daily lives. And also at the end of the day, we get to know that the paradigm shift around mental health is that mental health is a national security issue. It is not just supposed to be a side event or something that we just talk about it as an afterthought. But mental health is something that is supposed to be deliberately discussed in cabinet meetings, deliberately incorporated in policies, especially policies that trickle down to grassroots populations. Because many are the times that we think that we can only talk about an issue if it affects many nations, but then what about the person in the grassroots? All these issues start from the smallest institutions, the grassroots, the community levels, before it even trickles down to the policymakers themselves. So mental health is supposed to be something that we deliberately discuss and create deliberate policies around mental health. As it is a national security issue, it also tends to have an economical impact. If people are not in their right state, if people are not able to cope with the normal stresses of life, if people are not able to heal and be resilient enough, then the economical status of that particular country or the particular continent is affected as well. Lastly, we all have to agree and be deliberate about the fact that mental health is a human right. It is not an afterthought, like I have said, but it is a deliberate human right. And then we talk about what you would ask yourself, what is my role in ensuring that my mental health is in the right spaces as well as the person next to you? Because the way we're seated in here, I would want to assume that at least 50% of us are coming from civil society organizations. And civil society organizations, one of our roles is to ensure that mental health becomes a story that we tell so deliberately, and we own it to a point where it becomes something that we drive at local level, we drive under the tree as we discuss different problems that affect the grassroots communities. It becomes a story that we tell even on global platform, and it is something that we deliberately need to enshrine and incorporate in our day-to-day activities as well as the governance structures. Currently, I am working with the Ministry of Health trying to incorporate mental health in governance structures. It can only be a policy, it can only be seen as an urgency in terms of policy if the government themselves, as well as those people in political positions, are able to see that this is a policy issue and it has to be deliberately implemented. So my colleague had mentioned that how Zambia currently we have the Mental Health Act of 2019. Yes, we may have had glitches in implementation here and there, but I'm proud to say that currently we have managed to enshrine, to incorporate mental health in the National Youth Policy, as well as trying to revise our National Mental Health Policy, because we understand that it is from policy that even frameworks begin to feed into already existing policies, and it is easier for organizations, whether private sector as well as the government sectors, to be able to prioritize mental health and give it the attention it deserves and not just an afterthought. When it comes to the private sector, especially companies, it is imperative for us to know that the workforce cannot drive the productivity that we intend to attain at the end of the day if our workforce has a mental health that is compromised. The only way we are going to have an accountant that is on top peak performance is if we ensure that his or her mental health is in check, and also that deliberately we get to have mental health officers in organizations as a policy. You know how different organizations, there's an accountant, there's a coordinator for different programming. Let us be deliberate enough to even have mental health officers as deliberate as we can in these organizations to drive productivity, and also to ensure that the thoughts of mankind, when it comes to things like, when we talk about security, we talk about wars. All these things sprout from the mental state of the person who starts that particular war or that particular conflict. So mental health is never an afterthought. This one thing I emphasize on. Mental health is not supposed to be an afterthought, because technically mental health, just like money, makes the world go round. Thank you very much.